All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is a soon-to-be stormy Wednesday night, March 13th, 2024, here in the St. Louis area. I'm the Maestro, Jeremy Karp, and I'm telling you folks, we have a lot to cover in the world of the NFL this week because I'll be honest, we're going to have probably a lot of breaking news as the show goes on. So be sure to send in your comments, your questions. We got a lot to cover in the realm when it comes to free agency. So, okay, a lot of big moves have been made. Perhaps the biggest that's been made in the past couple hours is Calvin Ridley on the Jacksonville Jaguars, now heading to the Tennessee Titans on a 4-year, $92 million deal. The star wide receiver has now found a new home in oh, Do Henson tuning in, Do saying, quote, the Browns are trash and Pack Nation 2025 champs. Okay, we'll see how that goes, Do, considering that the Green Bay Packers lost both Aaron Jones and David Bakhtiari, both longtime staples of the franchise. But like I said, Calvin Ridley going to the Tennessee Titans, a big move, considering who the Titans have also lost so far in free agency. Will Levis now having himself a top receiving threat yet again. Um, but like I said, okay, so there's multiple ways we can go about how to talking about how this goes, about how the free agency has been. Um, you know, okay. So I guess the first one I have to talk about is with what's going on in Carolina with the Panthers. All right, so with the Panthers, this is what we have going on. With Carolina, it's no secret that Luke Combs, country music star, is a huge fan of the Panthers. He's not shy about in his concerts on stage wearing Panthers colors. And, he predicted that before last season, the Panthers would finish the NFL regular season at 17-0. Of course, they finished with the NFL worst record at 2-15. All that said, the Panthers had a chance last year to trade their star edge rusher, Brian Burns, to the Rams for 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick. Okay, that's perfect. Get yourself 2 first, get yourself a second. Everything seems to be going set in motion. Well, they decided against that. And in return, what happens? The Carolina Panthers trade Brian Burns for a second-round pick and a this year's draft, which will just be coming up in a few weeks, and a 2025 fifth-round pick, plus a swap of fifth-round picks this year. Yeah, the frustration is understandable. All right. Now, it also stems from the fact that Carolina traded longtime running back Christian McCaffrey, who was the number 8 pick in the 2017 draft, to San Francisco before the trade deadline in 2022 for the second, third, and fourth round picks, not overall picks, and a fifth rounder this year. Since owner David Tepper purchased the team, they've had 6 straight losing seasons. Yeah, there is a lot of criticism going all around for Carolina, and all of it is justified. And like I said, folks, please send in your comments, your questions. I'm telling you right now, Carolina, it's definitely been a complete cluster for the Carolina Panthers. Moving on to some other big free agent news. This happened yesterday. This one blew my mind, folks, but I understand why it happened. Kirk Cousins, the former Vikings quarterback, 35 years old and coming off a torn Achilles, has signed a massive 4-year, $180 million deal with $100 million guaranteed. Now, This year, Cousins will receive $90 million and another $10 million in 2026, as far as the guaranteed money is concerned. Okay. He was drafted in the 4th round by Washington in the 2012 NFL draft, spent 6 seasons there, and then spent the last 6 with Minnesota. He's got 4 Pro Bowls. He's got 76, 67, and 2 record as a starting quarterback, and over 3,400 career completions. There's a few things I have in regards to this. The first one I have is simple. First off, a lot of people are going to say, well, they could have used this money on Lamar Jackson last year. And this is where I have a big issue with a lot of, fans out there. Okay. The reason they did not get Lamar Jackson last year is Lamar Jackson, he's now a 2-time MVP. But even when he was just a 1-time MVP, he was still 25 years old. Still coming off a record-breaking season. You would have owed at least 2 first-round picks. And on top of paying a massive contract for Lamar, if you're going to Baltimore for this. As a free agent that was no longer with Minnesota, they didn't have to do that. They didn't have that situation. They didn't have that issue. And on top of that, I'm telling you, folks, I still, and my friend Andrew still feels the same way. I still think the jury's out on Desmond Ridder. I think Arthur Smith was an absolutely abysmal head coach. I think he's an abysmal head coach wherever he head coaches. The fact that you have Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Desmond Ridder, and you had an absolute just horrendous offense this in 2023 showcases that. Now, of course, new head coach Raheem Morris is definitely wanting to switch some things up, and I think this is a great opportunity for them. I do feel that they can definitely make something work out of all of this. And folks, while we have a quick second, be sure to follow us on Facebook and on X at Interstate 70 Sports Media. Be sure to follow Roundabout Sports on Facebook. You can find me at JCarpSportsFan1 on X. And you can find it Roundabout Sports on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and so many more places. With that said, once again, we're going to continue this free agency frenzy. Another thing that happened with Kirk Cousins getting signed to the Falcons is it eliminates the chance that Justin Fields goes to Atlanta. The Steelers signing Russell Wilson shows that, the Steelers signing Russell Wilson eliminates the possibility of Fields going to Pittsburgh. Now, all season long, I've been saying Justin Fields is going to be staying in Chicago for the foreseeable future, and I think what's going to happen is Chicago's either going to move down or they're going to use the number 1 overall pick on a receiver, whether it be Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors. Either one is a fantastic, phenomenal receiver and a great option. Surround yourself with talent that can actually really step up, especially now that Darnell Mooney's gone. I'm not going to act like who also signed with the Falcons on a 3-year, $39 million deal. Had to figure that one out. Now, if you are the Kansas City Chiefs, for those in our Kansas City audience, allow us to delve into the moves as well. So, I think one of the biggest ones is the fact that linebacker Willie Gay Jr. plans to sign a 1-year deal with the Giants worth up to $5 million. Deion Bush returning to the Chiefs on a 1-year deal, and free agent tight end who was on the Bengals, Irv Smith Jr. has reached an agreement on a 1-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs, which probably spells the end of Blake Bell's time with Kansas City. Obviously, no one's going to dethrone Travis Kelce until he calls it a career. And to me, Noah Gray is a great number 2. And I know that they're grooming him to be a number 1 unless they really do want to draft a tight end and see how that goes. But, it's been more so quiet on the Kansas City front in regards to free agency. They did make a big move, as reported by Adam Schefter, and that being that they created over 21 million in extra cap space from Patrick Mahomes' current contract. Now, I think I should explain what a restructure is for a lot of people, because you'll be hearing a lot of it during the offseason, especially. Restructure typically means that teams take the base salary that a player's owed over a season, and they give it to them before the season begins. Then it's considered a signing bonus, whose impact on that cap can be spread over the life of the contract. It only works on contracts 5 years or less. But I also think for Kansas City, this comes at the perfect time, because last week, Kansas City finally reached a deal with their star defensive tackle, Chris Jones. It was a 5-year deal that contains $95 million guaranteed in what has become the largest contract ever for a defensive tackle. Having your best leader on defense returning is such a big selling point. I definitely commend the Chiefs for getting that deal done before Jones hit free agency, because a lot of teams would be in the market. So I'm definitely, I do really like that idea. So cap space is cleared up for Kansas City. Kansas City is pretty well good. And meanwhile, I will say this. I look at the AFC West, and look at the Chargers. Austin Eckler went to Washington. Mike Williams got released. Russell Wilson left Denver. Jerry Jeudy got traded to Cleveland. The Raiders, if anything, made a big move. One that a lot of people thought that was going to happen. If basically what happened, Christian Wilkins agreed, former Miami Dolphins D tackle, signed a 4-year, $110 million deal to join the Las Vegas Raiders. He's a former first-round pick. Spent his first 5 seasons of his career with Miami. He was one of the top players. And let's put it this way. They also match him with Max Crosby, who's one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Now, unfortunately, it's a big loss for Miami, for you Dolphins fans out there, because Miami, I'm going to get into this in a minute with how many players Miami lost. But losing Wilkins is big because Dolphins were trying since last summer to negotiate a deal. They could get nothing done. They tried and they tried, could not negotiate a deal. Both sides said, screw it, we're not doing this. And so what ends up happening is that they end up moving on. Now, before I delve into some of the more moves that have been made, let's take a minute. And this, folks, is as of 7:45 Central Standard Time on March 13th. These are some of the top available free agents left. Jimmy Garoppolo, Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Dillon, Cordero Patterson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Mike Williams, Marquise Brown, Michael Thomas, Odell Beckham Jr., Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd, Tyron Smith, Trent Brown, Kevin Zeitler, Chase Young, Calais Campbell, Emmanuel Ogba, DJ Reader, Devin White, Jerome Baker, Justin Simmons, Julian Blackman, Jamal Adams, Jordan Fuller, Kendall Fuller, Stephon Gilmore, Xavier Howard, Steven Nelson, and Dory Jackson. And those are just a few of the names. And be sure to comment and tell me who you would like your favorite NFL team to sign over the course of free agency. You know, I want to point out, it actually kind of cracks me up because a few weeks ago, Jerry Jones said, and here we go, good old fashioned Jerry Jones himself. He said that the Cowboys were going to go all in this year. Now, when you think a team's going to go all in, you say to yourself, okay, whoever's a free agent, we're going to get them as best as we can. We're going to put in these big money offers. We're going to do everything possible. Yeah, that is not at all what happens or what has happened. In fact, the Cowboys lost 3 players to the open market. They lost starting running back Tony Pollard, as he signed a 3-year, $24 million deal with the Titans. Dorance Armstrong, defensive lineman, signed to the Washington Commanders. And their starting center, Tyler Biadasz, and I'm sure I got it wrong, signed a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Commanders. And yes, they re-signed their long snapper, and they just recently signed Eric Kendricks. But you look at what's going on in the rest of the division. Okay, well, the Eagles got Saquon Barkley and Bryce Huff. The Giants got Devin Singletary. And bear with me. I'm trying to think of some of the other moves. I mean, they do tender cornerback Nick McLeod. Of course, the Giants are also the team that traded for Brian Burns. So pairing Brian Burns with Dexter Lawrence, okay, yeah, there's a really good defensive line. And we've already delved into some of the moves that the Washington Commanders have made. So it seems like everybody in the division is making moves except for the Cowboys. So, yeah, there's a lot that's left to be desired there. Then we get into the move that really surprised a lot of people. And there's a bit of controversy with this one. Okay. So, we have running back Josh Jacobs. And now, after 5 years with the Raiders, Josh Jacobs is going to the Green Bay Packers on a 4-year, $48 million contract. Now, he was aiming to stay in Las Vegas, per his Instagram story, but that wasn't meant to be. The NFL is a business after all. And my dad said, I would say what I think of Jerry Jones, but this is a G-rated show. Well, first off, it's far from being a G-rated show. I mean, I've done this show for years, and I know that ain't true. Second, yeah, I probably feel the same about Jerry Jones, especially being a St. Louis citizen. That said, Josh Jacobs said in regards to the Raiders, when a player leaves, it's always the player being unloyal. At what point do we ask the franchises for that same loyalty? They tried to re-sign Jacobs, though. the Raiders coach Antonio Pierce made it clear at the combine they did want Josh Jacobs back. They met with his camp, but Las Vegas was just outbid, and $48 million is a steep price to pay for a running back. To me, running backs are the workhorses that don't get the true appreciation they deserve. But the thing of it is with running backs, their career spans are very short, and teams don't really want to invest a whole lot of money. That was a big controversy or a big issue we had last year with that, is that teams do not want to spend the money that they feel they should on a running back. And to spend $48 million over 4 seasons. Meanwhile, Zamir White is still, he's likely to be, this is what's interesting. A lot of people are wondering what the Raiders going to do now. Looks like now Zamir White is going to be the Raiders starting running back. Now, as far as the Packers, look, I get it. It may not seem like much, but I'm telling you right now, folks, Josh Jacobs to the Packers is actually pretty damn impressive. Oh, hang on. We got the Night Owl. Que pasa, que pasa, que pasa. Renee the Night Owl from the Wrestle Talk podcast, the premier wrestling podcast, alongside Issues with Wrestling with Christopher Miles, as always. But Night Owl, is so good to have you tune in. Be sure to send in your comment, and you as well, folks, for all of you amazing folks tuning in. It's always appreciated on how you feel about free agency so far. What moves your favorite team might have made. And I'll tell you this much. Renee says O'Connell ain't it, Chief. I mean, I'm guessing he's referring to the Minnesota Vikings. That would be my best guess, because if so, I mean, right now the Vikings, with Kirk Cousins gone, the Vikings signed themselves a new quarterback. Former first-round pick, 4th overall pick in 2018, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, once again, the interesting case that he is, went from being a backup on the Niners to the Chiefs, from the Jets, 49ers, and now he was on the Panthers too, and now he is on the Minnesota Vikings as the starting quarterback. Lord forbid. Also, folks, be sure to follow the Wrestle Talk podcast on Facebook and Twitter, or X. I'm never going to get that right. And be sure to follow as they plug in a lot of great local, from the Kansas City area, a lot of great local businesses. We here at the Wrestle Talk podcast at Issues with Wrestling and Interstate 70 Sports Media, as well as the Barn Media Group, which is a proud partner, all support local and small businesses. So with that said, folks, we are going to continue our amazing and definite crazy coverage of the NFL free agency. And keep in mind, this all only started on Monday, or at least the legal tampering part. Okay, so right now we look at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns signed Jordan Hicks from the Vikings, a 2-year deal worth $8 million. Flacco Mania is sadly over, so... Oh, you're talking about... Yeah, you know what? Okay, now I know who the Night Owl's talking about. He's talking about Aiden O'Connell, the quarterback. You know why? Because I forgot. Yeah, they released Jimmy G. I mentioned that earlier. Then they released Brian Hoyer the Destroyer, who I was a fan of. So, yeah, they're going to roll with second-year pro Aiden O'Connell. God help them on that one. They could be pursuing Ryan Tannehill, Josh Dobbs, or maybe even Carson Wentz in free agency as well. Get a good veteran presence, since you literally just let go of your other 2 quarterbacks. But as I was saying, go through Cleveland signed Jameis Winston as their new backup behind Deshaun Watson, Naheem Hines. Um, and as far as keeping players, resigning them, Zadarius Smith, Maurice Hurst, and Shelby Harris, and Michael Dunn, and Corey Borquez were all retained by Cleveland. I'm sad Jordan Elliott, Anthony Walker are gone. Nick Harris was, to me, a crucial loss. The one that bums me out, people can say what they want. Cleveland fans, I miss Sione Takitaki. Because it just gave me more reason to say Taki. But also, to me, he had a lot of clutch plays. He had a pick six against Indy not too long ago. He performed great against the Steelers in the wild card game in 2020. I think. All right. Night Owl says, quote, Raiders need to farm the house, get that number one pick, keep Caleb Williams in Southern California, or at least in the, I guess, Southwest, if you will. Because this is my thing. All right, I'm gonna say it, and my friend Buddy Andrade and I are gonna be doing plenty of NFL draft specials in the coming weeks. I'm gonna say it. I do not think Caleb Williams is that guy. I don't think he's the franchise face of any of these NFL teams. First off, I don't like the attitude. I think, look, you can be cocky, but there is a fine line between it and being able to recognize that you still are within parameters, which I don't feel that he feels. Night Owl says he meant Las Vegas. He's old. I mean, you're not old, first of all. Second of all, look, teams are moving like crazy. Hey, don't worry. Before you know, we're going to have probably 5 or 6 international teams too. So we'll add more for the standings. That being said, and yeah, I don't think Caleb Williams is going to do well no matter what team he goes to. I've discussed this with my friend Andrew before. I believe that Jane Daniels is the best quarterback in the draft. I believe followed by Drake May, JJ McCarthy, Caleb Williams, and then Michael Penix Jr. That's how I rank those 5 quarterbacks. And I think a lot of it just has to do with, and the Night Owl even says Fields is better than Williams. And I agree with him. I think Justin Fields is a lot better. Justin Fields is a lot better than people give him credit for. I mean, even his career stats aren't all that, terrible. Okay, let's be real here, folks. Given what the Bears have done the past couple years, let's really look at Justin Fields' career stats. Okay? A 3-year time span, if you will. Give me 1 second. Okay. I had to make sure to get the rushing there too, because that obviously matters. All right. In his career, Justin Fields has a 60% completion percentage, 6,674 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 30 picks. Now, that's for him as... Oh, now I will say the biggest flag, of course, is the win-loss record. The Bears are 10-28 in games he started in. That is a huge cause for concern. Let's also, though, talk about his rushing stats. Justin Fields in 3 years. How many carries? 356 carries, 2,270 yards, 14 touchdowns. I mean, he averages 6.2 yards per attempt. And, that's the thing. 14 touchdowns rushing, but he makes such big explosive plays. And, I look at it to where fumbling is also a big concern when you're Justin Fields. 38 fumbles in 3 years. Give the man a line. You know what? Okay. All right, here we go. There are multiple options the Bears can go in the draft. And, I'm sure Night Owl isn't by his computer. Maybe he is. If he wants, you can always ask for a link. Yeah, I'd love to have him on in the future on here. But I'll say this much right now, at least. The Chicago Bears need linemen. The Chicago Bears have already upped the defense. They signed Kevin Byard. They signed DeAndre Swift. So there's a huge defensive signing. There's this huge offensive signing. Go out there, get Marvin. I like what Night Owl said. Get Marvin Harrison Jr. or get him Hollywood Brown. Hell, go for Marvin Harrison. Or better yet, I got one a lot of people may not really think about. Go and get Joe Alt. Now, you may be like, well, what receiver is Joe Alt? Well, he's not. He's not a receiver. Joe Alt is an offensive tackle with Notre Dame. And he's projected to go in the first round. His father was John Alt, who actually was a former first-round pick by the Kansas City Chiefs, played 13 years with Kansas City. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler. He's in the Chiefs Hall of Fame. So, obviously, great blocking runs in the family. But if you're Chicago, get someone. Give somebody for Fields. You're not going to win any more games with Caleb Williams than you would with Justin Fields. Fields is not the problem in this. It was proper coaching, and it was proper and it was just building the team, The Night Owl says he would love to have excuse me, he would love to be on next week and talk sports. Well, I got so many guests lined up for future shows. I'm going to definitely keep you in mind on it, but I'm going to tell you this much. I guarantee you, Night Owl, when you are on this show, we will make sure to talk NBA. And it doesn't have to be just for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, all right? We're talking draft or NFL free agency and some draft tonight because it has been crazy these past 2 days. But I'm telling you right now, my friend, the NBA has been crazy in its own mind. But don't you worry, folks. All right? So I got you on that. We got a lot of, and I can't spoil the surprise on who some of the people I've been in contact with wanting to join. Because we're all, and like I said, folks, tune into Wrestle Talk podcast every Tuesday night. Tune into Issues with Wrestling with Christopher Miles and Jared Shannon, airing on Sundays. Make sure to, support a lot of the amazing shows Interstate 70 Sports Media is a part of, or that is under the Interstate 70 Sports Media banner. We're also on interstate70sports.media, where you can find all of our latest articles. We cover, excuse me, while we cover the big four sports, we mainly cover Missouri-based, Illinois-based, and Kansas-based sports, as well as professional wrestling. Just to, throw that out there. Like I said, we're on Facebook, Twitter, God dang it, I did it again. Facebook, X, on our YouTube channel for Interstate 70 Sports Media. And like I said, folks, there is so much going on in the NFL right now. There is a small controversy, and I say small because it's something that it came from somebody that claims something, if we will. Now, here we go. Penn State head coach James Franklin claims that the Philadelphia Eagles had direct contact with running back Saquon Barkley directly, which before the free agency process started, which is tampering, which is illegal, of course, by the NFL law standards. If what has been reported is true, the NFL will be investigating the matter. Like I said, we'll keep close eyes on it. But yeah, right now, we are taking a look at a lot of the latest news, and we just got latest news as well. The Bengals just agreed on a 2-year, $26 million deal with D tackle Sheldon Rankins. All right. Well, after recording 6 sacks last year for Houston, that's actually really good signing for Cincinnati. The Colts are signing former Browns quarterback and comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco. And the Night Owl's still going at me, still commenting at me. You know what? I know you are such a popular figure, Night Owl. I don't know if you're at your phone doing another show or an interview and decide to pop in, or if you're doing something else. Look, man, you are a workhorse. That's why. So I know you. I got a lot of love and respect for you. But we are going to have you on a future show, Roundabout Sports. So no harm, no foul, no disrespect, Night Owl. You know I love you. All right. We're going to keep things going here. Like I said, Jonah Williams are signing with the Arizona Cardinals. Harrison Smith is re-signed with the Minnesota Vikings. It'll be his age 35 season. He's been in the league since 2012. And I'm telling you right now, folks, he is an absolute just fabulous defensive back, great safety. Definitely will be in the Vikings Ring of Honor, but he's restructured his contract so that he'll be able to clear up cap space and he'll be able to return for his 12th season with the Vikings. So that's wonderful to hear. Like I said, there's been so many moves made, and we'd love to cover every single one. Covered a big chunk of them this evening. Before we close it up shop this evening here on Roundabout Sports, folks, I want to get through a couple little bit of tidbits through the world of sports in general. So, first, we got from the world of baseball, the San Diego Padres are finalizing a deal with the Chicago White Sox for right-handed pitcher Dylan Cease. It was reported a couple months ago that the Cardinals might be interested in adding Cease to bolster their starting pitching, but we all know they went with Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, and Sonny Gray instead. Now, that being said, Cease, 28 years old, was the runner-up for the American League Cy Young Award in 2022. However, his ERA shot up to 4.58 this past season. So, all winter, he was the subject of trade rumors, and now it's official. Once again, and yes, this is a second time this has happened, what I'm about to mention. A defamation suit against our old friend Jerry Jones has been tossed out in a federal court by a woman who says she is the billionaire's daughter. Federal Judge Robert W. Schroeder III dismissed the lawsuit filed by Alexandra Davis with prejudice, meaning the case cannot be filed again. So, yeah. I mean, Davis is a 27-year-old congressional aide, originally sued Jones in March 2022 to seek recognition as his biological daughter, um, um, a matter that's still pending. Um, and so, yeah, that's just lovely. Oh, and yep, we got one here from the Night Owl about Justin Jefferson. Okay, so we got to establish this one. Justin Jefferson turned down $30 million per year last year on what could have been a massive record-breaking contract extension. Why that deal was declined, I don't know. It actually is amazing to me that it was declined in the first place. I think a lot of it did have to do with the question marks about Kirk Cousins' future. And right now, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with, excuse me, with the Minnesota Vikings situation in the quarterback room. Right now, they got Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins. I mean, that's it. Well, wait a minute. No, see, had a brain fart. Then you got Sam Darnold. See, but Sam Darnold hasn't lived up to the expectations of where he was drafted. He was drafted 4th overall. He has not lived up to the expectations that Minnesota has needed and what they expect out of the team that they have. And maybe Justin Jefferson doesn't want to stay with Minnesota if this is what's happening. Um, you know, it's a very slippery slope. Justin Jefferson, whenever he gets paid, is going to be the highest paid receiver in perhaps NFL history. And it's deservedly so. Because no matter who's quarterback, he's phenomenal. But after spending his whole career with Kirk Cousins, will Jay Jettis be satisfied with Sam Darnold, with staying with Minnesota, with being that new franchise face? That I don't know. Um, so yeah. Ah. Well, folks, we got to finish it up here at Roundabout Sports. Like I said, we've gotten so much to talk about. And honestly, we have one more piece of NFL free agency news to close it out this evening, and that is the fact that the Washington Commanders are signing who was Washington Commanders, excuse me, were the worst statistical defense last season. But they added 8-time Pro Bowl linebacker Bobby Wagner on Wednesday. Wagner is the 6th defensive player Washington has signed since Monday, as they've added Dante Fowler Jr., Colleen Farrell, Frankie Luvo, Jeremy Chin, and Durance Armstrong. And Wagner's one-year deal is worth up to $8.5 million with $6 million in guaranteed. You know, Dan Quinn, the new head coach in Washington, is definitely making sure that they are really bolstering up this team. And yes, a big shout out to the Night Owl, for everybody that follows him on Interstate 7, or I'm sorry, everybody follows him on the Wrestle Talk podcast. And thank you to everybody who's been sticking around with us. This is definitely a phenomenal accomplishment. Means an absolute world to me. Like I said, you can follow us on YouTube at Interstate 70 Sports Media. All of our videos are there, all of our live episodes of all of our shows. You can go to Facebook for Interstate 70 Sports Media. You can go to Facebook for Roundabout Sports. For issues with wrestling, you can go there for the Wrestle Talk podcast, the Barn Media Group. With all that said, we are going to close it up. I hate closing it up on a peak show where we literally have record-breaking viewership at this point in a show. We've had, for those that are just tuning in for the first time, I want to tell you right now, we've had fantastic guests on, former NFL players, former MLB players, former athletes, journalists, broadcasters, the works. So please be sure to come back next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time for the next edition of Roundabout Sports. We always have so many great surprises. Now, as always is tradition on this show, we close by putting up the NAMI helpline. The NAMI helpline is 1-800-950-NAMI, 1-800-950-NAMI. The National Alliance on Mental Illness is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for those who struggle with mental illness. And as always, we put the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline up. And for that, we dial 988. The line's open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand that you're never alone in this world. There is always somebody out there who loves you and cares about you and just wants you to get better. This is about you getting better. So, we all struggle. We all have our issues, our ailments, our addictions. I am no different. The road to recovery doesn't have to be traveled down alone. It's always nice to be that supporting hand or the supporting ears for somebody. And you were just a phone call, a text, or an email away from finding that help. And once again, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Eddie who tuned in this evening. I want to thank the Night Owl. I want to thank everybody who's tuned in everywhere. Once again, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you next week. And as always, I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp, reminding you that life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading. Good night, everybody.